thought I want to do a podcast. And I thought to myself, I don't want to just do one. It's got to be something that's kind of unique-ish. Like, there's nothing unique about anything these days. Like, you know, there's, for fuck's sake, there's like 8 Blink-182 like podcasts out there. Like,
you always have to go back to that, don't you?
I do. But like, you know, someone's already done it before. It is what it is. Like, podcasting has been around for like 11, like as a thing, around for like 11 years now. So there's nothing new in that sense. And in essence, I'm just not even interviewing, but just having a conversation with someone, right? But I thought, well, what can I do that's a bit different and a bit more centric to the punk rock umbrella? So like every time I do something, it's like, well, how can I incorporate a band that I like, their song or something to do with them into the title? And so I was going through the Descendants songs just because that's usually my first go-to for whatever reason. And I was just looking through it and I was like, MyAge, that's interesting. And then I thought it kind of distorted, but didn't really think too much of it. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to interview someone. And on ABC, there's this guy named Richard Fidler, and he did this show called Conversations with Richard Fidler. He get weird and wonderful people on from fucking any point, like any, there was no common theme to it. He'd get a hiker, like a guy who's climbed Everest, and then a brain surgeon, and then a composer. Like, there was no common theme. They were just people with interesting stories. In the stories, they talk about their life, and they'd throw in 3 different songs. The songs had nothing to do with their life, but it was just to kind of mix it up a bit. So it wasn't just an hour of conversation. It'd be 15 minutes a song, 15 minutes a song, 15 minutes a song, finish. And I was like, that's really good because like you can find out about this person, and then you can hear music and hear it through their ears from their reference point with that kind of context. I was like, maybe if I did something like I spoke to friends about their life and kind of pointed it in the direction, like, and kind of, spoke to friends about their life and then incorporated songs that they like. That was my idea. I was like, that's cool, but like everyone changes. Like, my favourite song 5 years ago was different than my favourite song 10 years ago, and it's probably going to be different next year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I was like, well, maybe I could do it like when we talk about their life, and then we pick different songs from their life. So as I'm going through these Descendants songs of like, again, first port of call was the Descendants because they've got a big back catalogue, and you can always kind of pull something from it.
Well, they talk a lot about age too, right? Well, they talk a lot about growing up.
So that's the thing. Like, so I was like, oh, parents. Okay, cool. Song. I don't want to grow up. Okay, that's cool. And so like I found these songs that were written from the perspective of like different ages, or not different, with like an age reference in the title. So like
different points of life, different parts of the timeline.
So I it was kind of, then it dominoed. Then it really dominoed. So it was like I found parents, I found I don't want to grow up, I found my dad sucks, I found what would it be like when I get old, and my age. So like, and they were very like obvious age related things. Yeah. And I was like, well, maybe if I talk to someone and get and go, okay, well, parents, so what did your parents do? Like, what was happening when you were younger? Okay, and then like, I don't want to grow up. So like that's written from a sense of like an 8-year-old kid, like yeah. So that's a really young thing. So like, well, when you're 8, what do you listen to? Because that's kind of really when you first experience music on a conscious level. Yeah. That like more than just a background thing. Yeah. And then so 8, okay, and then like what's the next big pivotal point? I guess like my dad sucks. Like kids go through a rebellious stage where they're like, fuck you, dad, like you're not he's the boss of me, but like you're not the boss of me, and I'm my own thing, and I'm carving my own path. At 13, you think that 13 to 15, you think you're top of the world, and then like, so there were these 5 distinct points where I was just like, well, they're pretty crucial points in everybody's life. I could probably make something of this, and so I kind of wrote it all out, and then emailed a couple of friends and said, I think I want to do this thing. Like, do you want to have a chat and we'll see if we can pull something off? And so that's how it all. And then so like MyAge was like, it summed it up because where I like, this is where I was at my age.
That's pretty interesting because like obviously I knew MyAge and I just thought, oh, well, that's like kind of just, you know, a clever like pull in, you know, to the topic you already had in mind. But like to understand that came from like several songs from the same band that like kind of really outlined your entire show.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And so like, I try not to say to people, like before I do the podcast, one of the things I talk about, when I do an episode with someone, one of the things I talk about is like, here's the 5 points. Here's those 5 like basic talking points, but you don't need to reference the descendants. But like, instead of calling it point 1, I call it parents.
Yeah, right.
Instead of point 2, it's I don't want to grow up. Like, it's that kind of, that's how it all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's got nothing to do with the descendants. It's just a tie-in that works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting concept because I think, you know, like as people, we all have our own story.
Yeah, correct.
Right? But like at the same time, like we've all come at life from experience, right?
Yeah.
And like to have like music and songs define like a certain experience.
Yeah.
Like I think people that are really into music, like that's almost like it's such a quick connection.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like there. It's like I think of a time and there's a song for that. You know, it's soundtrack of our lives,
absolutely.
right? In essence.
And what I've learned is that your reality isn't the truth. And
Right.
it's a hard concept to grab because people can be so opinionated about something. And it's not even about opinions, but it's just like there's similarities between everything you and someone else does.
Yeah.
But then there's striking differences as well.
So
Like,
did you think that people would have as varied stories as they do? Or did you think it would be as easy to draw these things out of people as maybe it is? Or maybe I'm overstepping. Maybe it's not easy to draw this stuff out of people.
so one thing I learnt pretty quick is that people don't think they want to talk about themselves until they start talking about themselves.
But I think like within this kind of, this kind of a formula that like it becomes easy to talk about yourself because your point of focus is that song as opposed to like, you know, this is me at this stage.
Yeah.
Like that kind of comes as the periphery to where you're going, right? So I think it's clever in the sense that like you've created a focus that isn't about the individual, but they have to talk about the individual to get there.
But saying that, like, as well, again, back to the, like, you know, your reality isn't the only reality. Like, what you might think is a null and void, or just a not interesting point of conversation about your life, other people will sit back and go, that's fucking insane. The engaging thing is that, like, I think the reason that people keep listening is because just because it's a childhood doesn't mean it's not interesting.
Yeah.
You know, just because you think your parents aren't, just because your parents were like, your parents are all you've ever known as parents and one worked and one didn't, or like whatever, it doesn't mean that like then they don't have their special thing that resonates differently to someone else. Like another guest I've had on, Mark Muldray, who was on a couple of episodes back, late 20s-ish, like late 20s. I can't think of exactly what one it was, but his dad went to jail for a few years, but was an immigrant from some other country and had this amazing story. And for him, it was just like, it's just my dad. I'm sitting there going, yeah, I know your dad. I never would have known he went to jail. And it wasn't over something heavy. It was like, I mean, not that jail isn't anything to be kind of laughed at, but it was like, it was car theft or something.
Right.
And you just, whatever.
Like, I think the parents thing is my favorite part because I think the parents are the ones that, I mean, either consciously or unconsciously, you know, they write that blueprint for you in essence, right?
Definitely laid out,
Like, here's where we've set you up to go.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, we all start to make our own decisions, but like I think for me, you know, like my parents grew me up on the Beach Boys, and that's still very much a part of how I listen to music today. Yeah. Because it was just blueprinted into me. Yeah. It doesn't mean I listen to the Beach Boys nonstop every day, but like melody is so important to me in listening to music, right? Like if there's no melody there, I can't connect.
Yeah.
You know, so
sense.
I think that part of it is my favorite, is hearing like how, and it could be like, in my story, that's pretty obvious, but I think for some of the ones I've listened to on your podcast, like, you know, it's not so obvious. Yeah. It's like, oh, there was no music. And then I became like involved in 19 bands.
Yeah. So, which is even more interesting to me because it's like, well, what made you do it?
Yeah.
Like, how did you, you know, you've been playing in bands and you're about to release your 4th solo album or whatever. but your parents didn't play music?
Yeah.
Like, that's so wild.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you've had like higher profile people on the podcast, and then you've had people that, you know, like the majority of people don't know of, right? Like
outside of Australia, there's a lot of people don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. Or, you know, just people that you know personally, right?
Yeah.
So like when you've got that contrast of two very different types of people, you know, somebody who's used to or kind of used to being, you know, in the spotlight, you know, through music. And then you've got somebody who maybe isn't as used to or accustomed to it. Do you find it's the same, like in terms of like, I guess what I'm getting at is somebody who's higher profile, they probably, you know, don't talk about these kinds of things within their life as much.
And that's how I pitch it.
But do they get excited about doing something like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest guest I've had is Joey Cape from Lagwagon. I'm not sure if he said it on the podcast or we said it just before we recorded, but he's like, I've done 5,000 interviews, about 5,000 interviews. And one day I just rang up Fat Records and said, don't ask. I'm not interested, because I'm not. Like, what can I talk, like, in regards to Lagwagon?
What's your favorite Lagwagon album?
Where
what
did
was
Lagwagon
the process?
come from?
Writing trash.
What was different? Well, but even like the new stuff, like, what was your inspiration behind the new album?
Right.
Well, just listen to it. Like, just listen.
Well, because music's so subjective, right? Like, an artist doesn't want to tell you what to think. I mean, and that gets a little bit arty too, right? Like, I mean, okay.
But so
we don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
But,
so, but when he was like, when we had the conversation, he's like, oh, we're going to talk about me? Like, Randall Cape? Like, the person, not the singer of Lagwagon. I mean, you know, he's got the stories, don't get me wrong. But, like, I want to know, like, his mum threw out, he had a collection of, like, Ray Pettibon, original Ray Pettibon flyers from Black Flag shows he used to go to back in the early 80s. And they were he used to hide them in his drawer because they were so confronting. They were fucking brutal. Like, for the most of the time, they were fucking brutal. Like, and so he hid them, and his mum found them and threw them out. Nowadays, like, an original Ray Pettibon flyer is like worth $100. Like, if a small shitty one was like $100, and they go up from there. But he just wanted them because he just loved them, because that was him documenting it. But I doubt anyone's ever dragged it out of him in this conversation, but I doubt anyone's ever said, like, hey, what happened, you know, in those early, everyone goes, in those early years of Lagwagon, not in those early years of Joey Cape. And so, like, I think he was really excited to be able to be like, hey, we're going to talk about Lagwagon, but not the recording process or this and that. Like, we were going to talk about how his life was affected by Lagwagon.
Does it become difficult in the sense that, like, you've got somebody's life story in front of you, and, you know, you've got to somehow, you know, pull the best parts, maybe get rid of some of the fat, do a little bit of trimming. Is that a hard sense of responsibility to have that and, like, be like, you know, I don't want to cut something that somebody might have felt was really important, but I felt was, like, a little bit extraneous? Like, I mean, you're the one telling the story ultimately.
So for as of this day, I've released 31, and they're pretty much like the only thing I edit is me saying and yeah.
Which is a lot.
Which is fucking heaps. So
okay, so let's take that further then. So the conversation is what the conversation is.
Literally.
Okay. But, like, do you feel like, I mean, as a listener, as a producer, like, because I know some of the episodes are pretty long.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a detriment within that?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
But it doesn't matter.
But it can work.
Right.
Like, it's proven it can work.
Because, I mean, when you look at, like, now that podcasts are getting, like, you know, like, people are finding the science behind it, right? What's successful? Okay. How many do you need a month for it to be successful? For that how many minutes does it need to be, you know, that people are like, the metrics are there, right? In terms of, like...
And it's only getting more and more in depth as time goes on.
Yeah. So does that play a factor into your production? Like, no. I mean, if you knew you could garner another 1,000, let's just throw a number out, another 1,000 listeners.
Or double, hypothetically double.
Sure.
Or whatever, yeah.
If you cut it to, you know, half of what you're putting out, would that be something that you would do? Or?
I just feel like that's not fair to their story.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't think it was a relevant part of their story, they wouldn't have said it.
Right.
So I think that's kind of yeah, I think that's just disrespectful to the person,
right?
To the person I'm talking to,
right?
But I'm always upfront with everyone. Like literally before we hit record, I always say to people, I can edit this. If you tell a story or you say something or whatever, and then you wake up in a cold sweat in 3 nights' time thinking, fuck, I shouldn't have said that, message me, I'll take it out. Otherwise, as a podcast goes, as an episode goes, sometimes I go for an hour and a quarter, sometimes I go for 3 hours, because that's the person's story. And I'd like to think, and I know that it doesn't happen because I do it myself, but I'd like to think that if you're on board with it, you're trusting my judgment as a curator,
right?
You're trusting my judgment as a curator to be like, no, this person's story is worth listening to. Like, I know it says 2 hours and 46 minutes, but give it a go. Like, it is an investment of your time that will pay off from some kind of enjoyment.
Who's somebody you haven't interviewed yet, and maybe not somebody you've reached out to, but let's just say, hey, Joel, you have your pick. Who would it be?
My first is Erin from Fat Records.
Okay.
Hand on heart, top of the list. Because I feel like she's been so underrepresented in such a monstrous movement with her story and with her involvement. And everybody knows who she is, but no one knows a thing about her. And like I think it's weird when I talk, oh, not weird, but like I've spoken to some of my best friends about, like, on the podcast, and then at the end of it gone, holy fuck, I didn't know that about that. Like, I did not know that about you. Like, because you don't really talk about your younger life when you meet someone in your 20s. You don't really talk about what happened when you're younger. It's like, oh, he grew up here and that's his parents and they're still together or they're not together or whatever, and that's all I need to know. So, like, I just look at her and go, no one seems to have talked to her about her in general, but the monstrous effect she's had on so many musicians' lives, which then in turn had a monstrous effect on a lot of other people's lives with music.
Sure, and like, where does the blueprint come to create that?
Yeah.
Right?
Like, and not to sound like I'm putting shit on him, but everyone knows everything about Fat Mike. He wrote it in a book.
Sure.
For a longer time, he didn't do interviews. He wrote the book. There's nothing more you really need to know. I mean, it's all there, but her story hasn't been told. And not that mine will ever reach the masses on any way, shape or form, but for my selfish interests and for the interests of people who get this and enjoy what I do, I think she would be the ultimate guest.
Cool. Yeah. Great answer.
Yeah.
Like, when you do these podcasts, I mean, I think every episode I've ever listened to, somebody throws out some bizarre song and you're right there with it. You're like, oh yeah, I know that song. Or you get a little excited over a song like you never thought was gonna, pop up.
Yep.
Is there one that comes to mind that, like, you were like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and then maybe you were blown away a little bit? Like, either in a good or bad way. The one that still blows me away, and I use as a reference for every other podcast I've done ever since that, was one of the earlier episodes, like, would have been in the top 10 episodes, first 10 episodes somewhere, was a guy named Paul Vogue who played in a couple of bands, owned a record store in Brisbane, and actually is a wedding celebrant, and he officiated Nicole and my wedding in 2012. His first song was a Bing Crosby Hawaiian Christmas song. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like, let's do this, because but to him, that was his reality. Right. Wasn't mine. Right. Fuck, was nowhere near mine. And I'm sure it was like that for many other people. But that one, I was like, okay, like, this is where we started, because that's what it is. And like, I think people would realize if people were trying to fake the funk, like, and be like, oh, well, my parents listened to the MC5. It's like, yeah, they probably didn't. Right. Like, don't try to outcool everybody, because they probably didn't. And like, that brutal honesty of like, yeah, no, this is, when I think of music around my household, I can't even pronounce the song, but the Bing Crosby Hawaiian Christmas song is the first thing that comes to mind because of this, and that. And it's like,
Let's go.
Isn't it Melikaliki Maka?
Yeah. Look, your Polynesian is a lot better than mine.
Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew? Yeah, you're closer.
Is it? Yeah. I guess it would be.
We're 9 hours, you'd be about 5. So
that's when we take Polynesian in school in Canada as well. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't know if you're joking or not with that.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, yeah.
So like in the beginning, I'm sure it was like, let's get some friends together. Cause that'll be easy, right? Like somebody would be like, yeah, sure. I'll do that. You know, that sounds like a good time.
Yep.
But you've done how many now? Like you're over 30?
When I get home, I'll release episode 32.
Okay. So you've done 32 episodes. I think at this point, it's probably safe to say that like, you're maybe your wish list of who you want is becoming a little bit more, not sophisticated. That's not the right word, but selective. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So like, what goes into that process of like, this is who I want next, or this is who I'm reaching out to, or are people reaching out to you? Like how do those? Because like you said, right? Like I'm going to spend 2+ hours with you and somebody else. And chances are I don't know this person.
Yeah.
So what makes a good story? Like, how do you know that their story is going to be worth listening to? And I don't mean that to sound negative.
No, I agree.
Or that there's boring people out there. Because I do truly and honestly believe that everybody has a story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not everybody is designed to talk on a podcast.
At length.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have like a 2-tier list, and not tiered as in like I've got A and B, but I shouldn't call A and B because it's like, not saying the A's are better than the B's, but like the A's are like the wish lists, like as in, hey, it would be great to get Tim Barry or something like that.
Sure.
Right? Who's obviously got stories. Obviously got, lived a life.
But let's take them out of the mix.
Yeah, cool.
Let's take like, musicians that people would automatically pick up and go to. Let's go to the list of, so I get what you mean with A and B.
Yeah,
A being people that, everybody knows, and B being people that you know.
Yeah.
So let's just focus on the B list.
So the B's, I basically put it down to, I have this, it's not a hard and fast rule, but my thought is, if you're still doing something artistically creative, if you've got an artistically creative outlet that's rather prominent in your life, it doesn't have to be like the everything of your life, but if you've got something, if you've got something that you can kind of be like, hey, like I'm an adult, like I'm a quote unquote adult now, and I'm in my whatever age I'm at, and I've still got something that I kind of hold on to that's my little outlet, I think, well, you've probably got some stories. Because I find like maybe it's me being I don't know how to put this. There's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with being 21 and thinking I'm at an age now where I need to settle down. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Like I've got friends who did it, married at 21, kids at 23, off you go.
Sure.
Fantastic. Do you. That's unreal. Because at the end of the day, your retirement's probably going to be better than mine because you did the fucking work.
Yeah, right.
This asshole worked at like Subways whilst he was playing in bands.
Right.
And worked cash jobs whilst he was playing in bands. And I think to myself, chances are if you're living your dream with a minimum wage, you're probably going to have better stories, more interesting stories, not better stories, more interesting stories than someone who goes to, I can't think of a Canadian equivalent, but like for Australia, if your family trip every year is to Bali or Fiji, like that's fantastic. You do you, but to me, that's fucking boring.
Right.
Like, so if you're still doing something in your 30s where you're still engaged in some kind of artistic creative outlet, then chances are you're going to have a good story.
Gotcha.
So like my rule of thumb is, like if you're still going with it, I'll probably one day give you a call. It might be tomorrow, it might be in 2 months' time or whatever, or 2 years' time, but I'm interested to hear because you can kind of, your story, your interesting, and I'm sure people have interesting stories that don't play music, right? Or that don't aren't artists.
Yeah.
Like in which they,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
like it's a roll of the dice. If you speak to someone and go, yeah, I used to play in a band when I was 20 and then I stopped when I was 23 and then I was married at 25 and now I've got 3 beautiful kids and one's about to graduate high school. Fantastic. Like I don't know if I can gain interest in that because like I don't know.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, you know, just that continuation, right? That not all of us want to, not all of us have that in us, right? To continue kind of those young ideas. I think even listening to punk rock for some people is like young, you know, quote unquote, young behavior, right?
Absolutely. Like I'm sure that if I spoke to people that I went to high school with, who I still keep in contact with, quote unquote, via Facebook, as in they're there, they'd be like, oh, you're going to Vegas? You're like, going to this hotel, like, you're going to gamble, da-da-da. It's like, oh, no, I'm going to see bands for 4 days. They'd be like, I don't get it. Right. Like what I was saying last night, like, that's like saying, what's 1 plus potato? Like, I can't get
Which
my
is
head
my new favorite quote,
like,
by the way.
Like they can't wrap their head around that equation. Like, you're going to Las Vegas, not drinking that much, not gambling. You're going to see bands that you listen to that are 30 plus years old that you listened to 25 years ago. You're going to do that, are you? Okay. Yeah. And that's cool because they probably look at me and think that's fucking weird. And I go, that's cool because this is my reality. And you do you. You go to Bali, take your kids. They're beautiful. Like, have a great time. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. When you decided to start doing a podcast, I mean, what was that like? I mean, you talked about the interest in terms of like
the conversation
or how like how you wanted to construct it.
Yep.
But like, why? Like, what was it in your life at this time where you were like, you know what? I think that this medium is for me.
I can pinpoint it down to my wife and I finding out we were going to have a kid. Literally that. I was like, I want to do something still.
So what are you doing at that point? You're married. You and your wife are about to have a kid.
Yep.
Like right before that moment, right before that page turns.
Fucking around.
What are you doing?
Bands, okay. Just doing bands.
How many bands have you been in? Like in your life, could you even say?
Bands that have played like more. Let's
not for a day, but like maybe you've played some shows with.
Recorded a demo or da-da-da-da. Yeah, so probably about, off the top of my head, I'd probably say about 8.
Okay. That's a fair few.
Yeah, 6 to 8. Yeah. Like I could,
and we're talking like committed bands. Like we're not talking like, we got together for a couple jams. Like these are committed.
And then finish. Yeah. Like we're going to write songs. We're going to do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, that. Yeah. Probably about 6 to 8. Yeah. Varying degrees of success.
Sure.
You know, it is what it is. But yeah, like when I found out my wife knew she was pregnant before I did because that's biology. That's biology.
Number one.
Like I was there, but she knew. All right. And so I was like, I can't. I still want to have it. I still want to have a creative style of outlet.
Sure.
I can't be burning money on. Oh, okay, $20 band prac, and you're driving an hour and a half to play in front of 4 people, and it's going to cost you $30 in petrol. And you're going to be home, and you're not going to be home till 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Like, I need to slow that down for a while, not quit it, just bring it back. So I was like, well, if I could do maybe a podcast when I need to, like it won't. Once I've got the initial outlay, it won't really cost me any money. I can do it when it's convenient, like. Okay, you're going to go to bed. That's cool. I'm going to go have a conversation with this person. Like, it's not affecting anything. That was like, okay, this is the time I should do it. It's worked out now that this would be the best time to kind of look into this and start thinking about what you want to do. And it's interesting. The first one I ever recorded was with Moke for some reason. Not for some reason, but like I had 4 people that I wanted to speak to first.
Okay.
3 of them were podcasters, Team Nate, Team Moke, not in any particular order, just because you're in front of me.
There was a particular order.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There was a very particular order.
Aaron Osborne, who does the Oblivious Maximus podcast, which he doesn't do anymore, which is a damn shame because it was great.
Yeah.
And Michael Anderson, who drummed in Irrelevant and a band called Last Nerve, and a bunch of other bands as well from Sydney. Because he was one of my best friends. I don't have a best friend. I don't have best friends. I think it's really like
you have friends.
Yeah, no.
Good friends,
but I
close
haven't.
friends.
I have what I consider an inner circle.
Okay,
and he is part of that inner circle.
Cool.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I recorded Mick first because I was like, Mick will be gentle with me. Mick will understand that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but neither does he.
Right.
And we'll just go through it and see what happens, kind of thing. And if it works, it works. But if it's going weird, he'll kind of help me out. And, kind of not laugh at me and go, what the fuck are you doing? Like, da-da-da-da-da. Anyhow, so, and then the second one I recorded, I feel like it was with Moke. And it was on a Sunday night. So I don't know how that works. It must have been Sunday morning there or something, or like in Canada or something.
It was probably like a week before.
It was probably Christmas or something, yeah. And so I was recording on Sunday night, and Nicole came in to me. So the podcast, like I'd started getting some in the bank, and I've still got the recording of it because I've saved everything. And Nicole walks in the room and just said something like, "Oh, I'm not feeling well. I've called the doctors. They've said this, and that. Like, I've got to check this out." And like Moke heard it all through the microphone, and goes, "If you want to stop this, it's all good." And I just go, "Give me 10 seconds." I ran up to Nicole, spoke to her, and she's like, "No, keep going. Like, but just know that I'm not feeling great, and we might have to go to the hospital." Finished recording. She was fine. Next morning, she wakes up. Next morning, I wake up. I go to work. She calls me as I'm walking to work. Goes, "My water just broke." And I was like, "Cool, bang, off we go." And so it was really weird. Like, that was as the podcasts were getting in the bank, the baby was born.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So we're at Punk Rock Bowling.
We are.
In Las Vegas.
We are.
And we always like to do a top 5 list at the end of this thing,
cool.
right? To keep the whole theme going, connect it all.
To tie it all up.
Tie it all up into a nice, pretty package.
Yep.
Or as pretty as we can make it.
Well, we do best with what we've got.
You can put lipstick on a pig, right?
She's still a pig. Yeah. You polish a turd, she's still a turd.
That's right. So let's define that top 5 list. And I think the top 5 list should be, what are the top 5 bands you've seen here this weekend?
Okay. Sorry, go.
Yeah. Let's keep it simple with that.
Yep.
Top 5 bands this weekend at Punk Rock Bowling, Las Vegas, 2019.
Are we going to go with full disclosure?
Full disclosure.
We are on day 3 of the proper festival.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do 6 only because because I'm team.
Because you're team Moke.
Yeah. I'm assuming the Hives are going to be in the top 5.
Okay.
So I'm going to put them as like.
So as part of that full disclosure, we haven't quite, I'm leaving early tomorrow morning. This is our only shot at doing this.
Yep.
And we haven't seen the Hives, not the high fives. They're not playing.
Yep. Next year.
on the third stage.
Third day.
Third stage. They'll be on the third stage.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The bedrooms.
The one they set up for themselves outside. Yeah.
Well, we're here now then. Oh, the Moke's not here. No, we're not here now. Yeah.
So we haven't seen the Hives and we haven't seen the Specials.
Yep.
And I think that's who you're here to see today, right?
Today, that was
okay.
Which kind of outs me because that's basically saying, I'm not fussed on Teenage Boy.
Nobody's looking at the lineup.
Oh,
it's
cool.
fine.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, that's cool because I wouldn't. Yeah, that's fine.
We'll be lucky if this comes out before Christmas, to be quite honest with you.
Well, Christmas was only last week in Australia. That's how weird the time difference works.
So, top 5. Full disclosure, there's 2 bands still left to see, but I'll leave it to you.
So, I'm just going to... So, without fail...
Yeah.
I'm going to have 2 number 1s because I can't separate them, and then I'll have 3, 4, and 5, right?
Okay.
Number 1... Mark 1.
Yeah.
And number 1, Mark 2.
Yeah.
Number 1, Mark 1 was...
You realize that's 1 and 2,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Okay.
I can't fucking... It's like having column A and column B with guest requests. Like,
you have to be fair.
You know
you
what?
have to couch it.
I've got it, right?
Okay.
Number 1 on the big stage. Big stage.
Yeah.
Was Rancid.
Okay. I mean, that's a given. Yeah. That show is unbelievable.
So, obviously, for people who don't know us as intimately as we know us.
Yeah. Which is a few.
There will be a few. I met Nate in 1998 when my pop punk band Ballpark were trying to, quote unquote, and I'm using big quote unquote air quotes, shop around our demo to international labels across the world in a time when I don't know how you'd used to search for stuff prior to Bing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how the fuck it's
Bing, bringing the internet closer to you.
Yeah. So like I got in contact with a bunch of labels. One of them was in Canada called Corrupt Records. One of the guys in Corrupt Records wrote back and said, hey, one of the other guys in Corrupt Records is on his way to Australia right now. Give me your number. I'll pass it on. You can hang out.
Business trips,
yeah. International scouting. The head of the Australian, the Corrupt guy who was heading to Australia, his name was Nate Lewitt. He's sitting in front of me across from me right now.
Hey, Jan.
Hey, Jan. When he was 18 and I was 16, again for full disclosure, he tried to proposition me into the dirty part of the city on a Wednesday night, procurement of a 16-year-old boy. I think it's illegal, but I also think the statute of limitations has well and truly passed, and I wouldn't press charges anyhow, so that's okay. No. So anyhow, Nate and I met in 98. Just so happened to be that when he was out, Rancid were playing. We got tickets to it. You would have seen them twice on that tour, didn't you?
What?
Did you see them twice on that tour or just once?
No, I think just once.
Okay. So they played one all-age show in their whole Australian tour. I went and picked up. I'm sure, I feel like I went and picked you up, but maybe I didn't. Oh, I picked you up for the Warped Tour.
Okay.
The next year. But, so Nate and I went and saw Rancid in 98, and it was the last time Rancid have ever come to Australia. So it's 21 years ago. The humorous reason for that is because when Brody Dahl broke up with Tim Armstrong and went off with Josh Homme, Tim Armstrong went, you represent Australia, fuck you Australia, and never came back out. The realistic reason for them never coming back out is because he could drive he could drive 3 hours north or south of where he lives and play 3 shows there and sell them all out and get as many people as you would in Australia, and then could drive home and not have jet lag and not have any dramas of travel.
Sure.
Yeah. That's the real reason.
But I feel like somebody could probably give stacks of cash if they really wanted them to come, right?
They've been offered $1 million.
And still no.
And shut it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe it's a combination.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So last night was special.
That was magic.
Yeah. Sorry, the other night was special. But like, because it was Rancid, but because it was like the first time we'd seen each other in so long.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of friends around who all were on the same page as us.
Yeah.
It was insane.
It's one of those moments you just cannot replicate
at all.
And like is just chock full of all kinds of feelings.
And it was also exciting because, you know, it's very few and far between that I get excited over a band anymore. And this is going to sound really fucking lame, but like we went and saw the Descendants last night and it was great.
Sure. Yeah.
I did not have an ounce of excitement for it.
Right.
Because I was like, hey, they'll probably come back in a year's time.
Right.
Like they'll come back.
The supply and demand.
Yeah.
The ratios are out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rancid, there was no supply.
Yeah.
There was demand, baby, but there was no supply.
Yeah.
So it was like the planets aligned and it was a spiritual event.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't have played a better set. They played really well. Yeah. The crowd was into it. Yeah. Like it was great. Yeah. And it's that you know, the elders of punk rock. Yeah. Right. You know, performing and bringing all the different, members of the Punk Rock United Nations together.
That's right. From all parts of the punk rock map.
Yeah.
The punk, what do you call that thing where they have like the center and then it all splinters off? Like
a pie chart?
Not a pie chart. There's a
family tree.
Family tree is not even. So there's something in the center.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then there's this. There's like hardcore punk and there's pop punk and there's this and then there's variations of that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like a brainstorming thing.
Yeah.
And they're at the nucleus of it.
Yeah.
And they unite everybody.
Yeah, because like a festival like this, like I mean, you go to your local show, you don't see as many of the factions of punk rock
at all
come out to one show, right? Like because there's so many bands, because there's so many different genres, because there's so many different people coming from all different parts of the world, you know, to see this show, you have so many different factions.
Yep.
Right? Like you could see it on like, and everyone has like a representative, right? Like, and the look and all that sort of stuff. It's
the cosplay outfit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, so Rancid gets the first seat.
No, Rancid gets the first seat on the main stage.
Oh, we're not doing two separate lists though, are we?
No, but we're having two number ones.
Oh, right.
And the way to keep them on the same pegging is main stage and small stage.
It's going to be Drug Church.
It will be Drug Church.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in a time when it's harder for me to find new music, let alone get excited by new music, Drug Church released their album Cheer last year, and it fucking floored me.
Yeah.
Like, and I know it didn't have the same, I completely understand that it doesn't have the same reaction because it's the beauty of music in general.
It's all subjective.
It's all subjective, and stuff will hit you like it differently to what it hits other people. Everyone's reality is different. But this fucking hit me at a time. And the only really other, it's happened to a few other bands with me. The National was another big one. Not that the National have anything to do with this weekend.
Wow.
But the National, a couple of albums ago called Trouble Will Find Me, hit me at a time when I was aligned to hit this album head on.
Right.
Everything in my life was ready to hit this album head on. The same thing happened with Drug Church's Cheer album. It just all lined up.
I love that.
And it just made so much sense to me, and I got so excited about it. So excited. I couldn't believe it. Like, felt like a fucking...
And they delivered.
That was the best part. But like, I felt like a 16-year-old kid when I was 16, and Paul Miller, who's here with us now, like not here with us physically, but like who's at the festival with us, who I came out with, gave me Ribbed.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd heard, I was into NoFX, and he's like, this is the one you should be starting on. Ribbed. Gave it to me for my birthday present. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, this is everything. So yeah, Drug Church, I just you couldn't wipe the smile off my face.
Yeah.
I also have this really, like, to hand in hand with the album. The singer is very, sometimes to his detriment, is very transparent. As in, like, he does 2 podcasts weekly. One is called Axe to Grind. It's a hardcore podcast. It talks about particularly American hardcore. They'll talk about shows that are coming up, albums that are coming out, bands that are hot, demos that are hot, labels that are doing cool things, whatever. And then he does this other podcast called Worst Possible Timeline, which started out as something that had like an actual aim and purpose.
Okay.
And not that it doesn't, but like had a different aim and purpose. And now it's morphed into the singer's, what's the singer up to at the moment, and like him and his best friend just shooting the shit, which can be really hard to listen to if you're not in on the joke or like in on the jokes.
Okay.
But he's really transparent. So like, I think another reason the album hit me so hard was because I was like, I know a lot about this guy.
Right.
And now the album's out.
So it just makes sense. It's like you're let in on all the secrets.
Another point of context, like another thing of context that just made it that much more obvious.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Couldn't wipe the smile off my face the second time they played. The first time they played, they got on fucking 20 minutes early. I caught the last 2 songs and was
favors to anybody.
Heartbroken.
Yeah.
But also, again, couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I felt 16 again, seeing NoFX for the first time, or seeing Pennywise or whoever, seeing Rancid at that shit venue.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter.
Yeah, it was
because this was the band.
Yeah.
Like they're there now doing it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, that's awesome, to be, in our later 30s and still have a band that can impact you that way.
Still get so excited about it. Yeah.
Okay, so number 2.
Number 3.
Oh, we're going to go number 3.
Now we can just do 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, now
we can just do 3, 4, 5.
Good man.
So, number 3, I'm going to have to go because it was such a surprise.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go Refused.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
We're going to go Refused. And Nate would like to take credit for this.
We're the same person.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, well, the same person trapped in one beautiful Canadian body.
Make.
Yeah, make. Noke. Anyhow, so Refused, I always knew they were going to be good, but I was always just stupidly standoffish because I can be a fucking
snob.
And a snob. I was going to say an elitist when it comes to music.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people who listen to who say they like them they actually just like it's like when people go, oh, I love Black Flag. No, you love the logo,
right?
And Rise Above,
right?
You don't love Black Flag. Like, you know, you love new noise,
right?
And you love watching when new noise comes on when you're watching Friday Night Lights,
right?
That's what you love, like. And so I was so standoffish with that kind of thing because as messages go, they still incorporate that message into their or I assume into their day-to-day, but definitely in their music. They just happen to write a song that, in my opinion, is the Smells Like Teen Spirit of hardcore punk.
Yeah.
Like, it transcended everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, as a performance went, that would be number one. Like, you just took, but like, obviously number one has got the number one spots have sentimental reasons as well. As a performance went, it was fucking flawless.
Yeah.
The dude would be pushing 50 and dance more than most 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah.
Except for that one bit where they put that sample and he sat down, crossed his legs, but he wasn't resting.
No.
He was just letting everyone else tune up, and he went, well, I may as well sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let everyone have a little break.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
You guys
all
have a break
take that in.
Yeah.
Right?
The intermission.
Reflect on that for a minute.
Absorb it, process it.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back. So
good pick.
That was that was pretty fantastic. Another band who were great, quote unquote great, but there was more nostalgia attached to it, was definitely both times we saw H2O.
Yeah.
H2O have been this really weird band throughout my life where they've always been I've always really, really liked them, but they've always been part of something really influential or pivotal or in my life, and they've always put on the same show, which is great. Like, it's not a diss, it's just like it's the same show. They do their thing, they do it great.
Yeah.
But they've always played a part of what I consider some of my favorite ever shows. So like, I've seen them. So my wife and I, when we were on our honeymoon, we came to the US, and on the last couple of nights we're on our honeymoon, they happened to be playing with the Bad Brains at this club in Hollywood. So we saw them, and it was one of those only in Hollywood stories where this ever happened. They played their encore. They played their set, then they did their encore, and as they're doing the encore, like before they started, they were changing the drum kit, and I was like, oh, they must have broken it. Being a technical nerd who would pay attention to something like this, I'm watching them change the snare. I was like, oh, maybe our mate just put his stick through the snare and they've broken the string or something. And they're changing some shit, and I was like, this is really weird. Like, you don't change the cymbals when you're changing a snare. You don't touch the cymbals. You just bring the snare on, put the mic on, and off you go. Little did I realize Travis Barker's coming out,
right,
to play play a couple of songs with H2O. So they play a song, Travis Barker comes out, and then they play the next song, and Scott Vogel from Terror comes out and sings a part that Freddie Madball would sing from his song Guilty by Association. Scott Vogel from Terror comes out and sings his part, and then in the last song, Matt Skiba comes out and sings his part on a song that they're going to close with. So it was this, pop punk, melodic hardcore, like whatever. Like, it was this fucking wet dream.
Guest list, yeah.
Just wet dream performance in front of me.
Yeah.
And then the Bad Brains played.
Yeah.
And then some cool shit happened after the show, but that's neither here nor there. But
because it wasn't this show.
It was, that's when we went to Kyle Gass's house for a party.
Right.
Like, we went from Bad Brains to Kyle Gass's house for a party. So and that's another thing which we won't even worry to get into. But like, they've been at some of my favorite shows I've ever played at. Like, I remember, they've played a bunch of amazing shows, and so that was the nostalgia thing. It was like, fuck, they haven't been out in ages. They were meant to come out and it cancelled. I was like, this is great. Like, we on that beach, on that pool top, we watched them play at a rooftop pool party.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, getting back just quickly to those club shows. Like, I mean, that is the club show, right? Like, getting to see a band in an intimate setting that not everyone can go to because not everyone is quick enough to get a ticket, and that's okay.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be, let's fit as many people into this venue, or let's change the venue so more people can go, because it's not as fun. It's not the experience. And the experience is having that chance. Yeah. Especially when you've been at a festival with thousands of people all day.
Where anyone and everyone can just turn up. To
just a select group that really wants to see this. Yeah. You know, is going to be there at 1 o'clock in the morning when the band comes on stage with 100 people that are just as excited.
Yeah. Like, I know we had that conversation in regards to, I guess you're reflecting to the, or alluding to the fact that the Pennywise Civil show.
Yeah.
They were meant to play a small club.
Yeah.
It sold out pretty quick. They decided to, instead of putting it at a venue, they just put it on the second stage.
Yeah.
And sold probably 4 times as many tickets.
At least.
Yeah, like I saw the beauty in both of those because it's kind of hard. Like I loved that show, that when the bands were playing that I didn't want to see, the bunch of us were right down the back.
Yeah.
Hanging out, we could have a conversation.
It was great. It wasn't loud. Yeah.
Like, had I been at a venue, that would have been a deterrent. I would have been like, fuck. Like,
but you just show up late.
But I had to watch Drug Church.
Yeah, right.
And then there was 2 bands in between. Right. So that would have fucked me.
All right.
Probably would have been on time though. So it would have caught me. But, you know, so the beauty of that, but yeah, then the beauty of, hey, no, these 400 people here were that forward thinking that they knew they had to be, like they had to be there. And that's also beautiful. That's also a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So I think,
it's finding the line between that.
Yeah, I think having that H2O experience absolutely, you know, one of the big contributing factors was it was a smaller group.
Yeah.
Right?
Very much so. Yeah.
Smaller area.
Yep.
Different from the rest of the festival.
For people who wanted to be there, who had to be there.
Yeah, and both shows were like that.
Yeah, very much
both
so.
The free rooftop and then the paid club show after.
12 hours later. Yeah. They played at 1 o'clock p.m.
Yeah.
And then played at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
12 hours later, which is fucking wild.
Good on them.
Yeah. They had the benefit of having a nap.
Yeah. We did not.
Yeah, we didn't nap. So
we're not rock stars though.
No, that's true.
Okay. Your last
Number
pick.
5. So if you get anything from the High Fives podcast, it's new music. It's banter.
Yeah.
And the benefit of also new music. So Nate said to me, you've got to come and watch this band. They're called The Drowns. I knew nothing. He gave you like, I remember your description was nothing like I thought they would be, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But if you had pitched it as what I'm going to pitch it as,
I
wouldn't have gone.
Right.
So like, you used Chuck Reagan, I think, or Against Me. What did you?
Yeah, I said it's not like Hot Water and it's not like Against Me, but if they got together, it's like maybe a child they would have.
Okay, so I'd describe it as like the singer of the Messengers.
Okay.
But he grew up, instead of growing up on Against Me, grew up on listening to like Oi.
Okay.
Like shaved head Oi stuff.
Yeah, okay.
So it's still got that kind of, that pop sensibility.
Yeah.
And that simple song structure.
Yeah.
From an Oi background.
Okay.
But I wouldn't have gone, if you had said that, I would have gone, no, I'll just miss it. Don't worry about it. But watching it, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, and like, again, it was like, wow, I took someone's word on it because they swore by it. And I was definitely not disappointed.
Awesome.
So they were also fantastic. And, you know, just like probably won't ever come out to Australia. Like there's no real...
Yeah.
Like they might. In 3 years' time, they might be the next Messengers.
Right.
Or however the fuck you pronounce it. And they might get signed to Epitaph and then come out with Pennywise, because that's what, when the Messengers came out, that was their first tour.
It's like aluminium.
Yeah. Right. Aluminum or, yeah. Not that I say it that way. I say it like the way you say it. But... So, yeah, it was great to see the Drowns and be like, wow, there's still new music out there.
That's cool.
By people still giving it a crack. Like, don't know how old they are. I can only assume that.
I would guess mid-20s, late 20s.
I would have said late to early 30s. Yeah, late 20s, early 30s. But, like, it's just great. There's still people having a go at it. Like, you know, and it's a weird double-edged sword with, like, music today, because it's so accessible and so easy to write music and so easy to get your material out there, right? But then it's so much harder to make the living off it.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's impossible.
So it's like anyone can do it, but not everyone wants to do it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just great watching a band come and play at hypothetically 4:00 on a day with a fucking stacked lineup.
Yeah.
And just going like, no, this is where we want to be right now.
Yeah.
Like we want to be doing this, and they just ooze with appreciation.
Yeah.
From the second they started, and I felt they were drug church too. From the second they started to the second they walked off stage, they were just like, we are really we just need to be doing this.
Yeah.
And and we appreciate every second, because there's a lot more other things you could be doing than being here right now.
Yeah.
Those side show bands, those like the small stage bands were playing, like the earlier ones were playing like 20 minutes. It would take you 20 minutes to get a beer.
Yeah.
And people would think nothing of that.
Yeah.
So like, hey, you know what? How about don't get a beer, watch this band? Like, it would mean the world.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other easier things you could be doing. There's fucking tons of art to look at, tons of merch to look at, tons of food to eat. Big bands playing in 5 minutes, a couple of minutes time that you might want to go check out. But no, you have my undivided attention for 20 minutes. I'm going to give it to you. And they just lapped it up. So those guys.
I like that list.
Yeah.
It's a solid list. Yeah.
Again, and the first cab off the rank to substitute in anywhere on that list besides one big stage / one small stage is the Hives.
Yeah.
They would have to make it.
Yeah, we'll see how they go.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel, thank you so much for this.
Not a problem.
This trip has been so good.
This trip has been
amazing.
A trip. Yeah.
And to do this.
It's unbelievable.